What's up, everybody? Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jacksonville Jaguars. And today it's a Victory Monday because we're celebrating the Jags' first win. The Jags were able to knock off the Indianapolis Colts 37-34 in front of a home crowd. It was Tom Coughlin Day. He went into the Pride. So it was a great day at the bank, and we're going to talk all about it. But before we talk about it, let's talk about our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of the $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Yeah, it was a great, man, what a great weekend for the Jags. It wasn't always pretty, but the Jags were able to get into the win column, so that makes it a fine weekend. When I just think about like the ebbs and flows of the season and the fact that the Jags entered week 5 0-4, 3 of those losses were by a combined total of 12 points. This was a must win. And it was a must win because if you want to have realistic playoff hopes, you can't go 0-5. And I can be super positive and optimistic, but 0-5 is really hard to bounce back from. As you look at the Jags and you look at the schedule, there's an opportunity for them to get back into the mix if they're able to take care of business in London. The first piece of business will be the Chicago Bears. If they're able to take care of the Bears and then maybe the Patriots, they can come back home and have an opportunity to maybe even their record up. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We want to focus on what just happened. But in the game that the Jags were able to win this weekend, they showed a lot of the things that a lot of us had expected to see from this team from the jump. Complimentary football, explosive offense, bend but don't break defense, dynamic plays in the kicking game. All of those things showed up, and all of those things are part of a winning formula in Jacksonville. When this team was built, when Doug Peterson took over this team, the expectation was going to be, look, the offense is going to be high power. They're going to score a lot of points. Defensively, they just need to keep the ball in front, rush with 4, and find ways to get stops in the red zone. And then in the kicking game, always have a dynamic returner that can set your offense up for great field position or add an explosive play to make it easier to score. Those things showed up against the Indianapolis Colts, and it was right on time. Like when you think about this effort, it was right on time. You think about the Jaguars had, one of the few times they've had a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver. Trevor Lawrence had 371 passing yards, was phenomenal, 28-34. Passer rating, 119.5, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Running back Tank Bigsby had 13 carries, 101 yards, 65-yard touchdown, added another 28 receiving yards, being the dynamic multi-purpose player that he can be at times, but he did a really good job running the football. BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., finished with 122 receiving yards, 5 catches, had a big touchdown down the boundary, got us going. When we look at this offense, and we've talked about it, this offense is dynamic, it's explosive, the ball goes to the open man, but the Jaguars have been a little more intentional in recent weeks, particularly with Evan Ingram out. The ball is primarily going to the top 2 weapons in the passing game. That would be Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk. You're giving the ball to Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, and then everybody else is fending for themselves. And if you look at the last couple of weeks, but particularly last week, this past week on Sunday, man, the formula works. Give the ball to your best guys, get out the way, let them go to work as they are settling into their roles. Don't be afraid to put a young guy in a prominent role and put an older guy in maybe a lesser role if it's better for him and his skill set. That is what's happening. That is what we're beginning to see with the Jaguars, is the embracing of the identity of the team. They've seen the team in action. After 4 games, you start making solid decisions and assessments, and you know exactly what you need to do. Doug Peterson was able to get that done. And so now this offense looks like the offense that we talked about over the spring and summer, one that could light you up, that can play with finesse, that can move it all, throw it all around the yard, and then one that could play big boy ball when needed to. When I look at the stat line, and I read off a bunch of them, the thing that stands out to me on this offense is the quarterback. And the reason I want to start with the quarterback is because we always start with quarterbacks. But it was really interesting watching Trevor Lawrence play. I was one that believed he was going to play really, really well against this team because this team is a simple design team. Everything they show, they do. They don't do a whole lot of disguising. They just kind of line up and play. They take the deep ball away. They force you to settle for checkdowns. And they're saying that you're not as disciplined as they are. And when you try and force one, you can get one picked off. Well, Trevor Lawrence played the game clean and efficient. Doug Peterson at halftime pulled me to the side. Like normally he stays away, does his own thing, but he came to me and said, man, it's amazing what happens when you just keep things simple. And it was not only referencing Trevor Lawrence, but he was referencing the whole team. Man, just keep the main thing. Just focus on the little things that we need to do to get a dub, and then if we focus on that and stretch it out and on and on and on, start to accumulate and stack some of these Ws. With Trevor Lawrence playing like he played, against the Colts, a couple of things stood out. One, he approached the game like a basketball player. When I used to play basketball in high school, my coach, the late Dexter Cooley, would always talk about it's really important. If you want to be a good shooter, you got to set yourself up for success by seeing the ball go in the hole. The more you see the ball go in, the more confidence you get. He had a routine for us where we started with form shots, then layups, then middies, and then you progress to 3-pointers. Well, what I saw in Trevor Lawrence taking on the Gus Bradley defense, Gus Bradley takes away the deep ball and he concedes the checkdowns. Well, after a while, Trevor strings out like 8, 9 checkdowns in a row. The ball is going. He's seeing the guy catch the ball. He's having a good field. He feels confident. He feels like he's hot. Well, now when you get a player that is feeling like they're hot, and I would say like if you go back to Madden terms where they feel like their star is pulsating up under their feet, that's problematic for opponents. Because what Trevor has always been is super confident, but what he hasn't been is super patient, or I would say very shrewd in terms of like how he managed the team and moved the ball down the field and those things. But him showing that he can take the check down, that he'll live to play another day, that he'll take the second thing, to me, that sets him up and sets his team up to have great success down the line. Because if your quarterback is willing to throw to anybody who gets open, pass rushes and everybody follow suit. So I love that part of what Trevor was able to do. But let's talk about the weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go in reverse because normally I would talk about the running backs, then the wide receivers. Let's talk about the wide receivers because of the passing game. We talk about Trevor having a 300-yard day, 371 yards. Look, man, it ain't a surprise. It's Christian Kirk. It's Brian Thomas Jr. Those guys get the ball primarily because they're operating out the pool. They do it exactly what is asked, and they're having a lot of success on the perimeter because Press Taylor and Doug Peterson are being more intentional about targeting those guys early and often. It was really apparent early, man. You just think about Christian Kirk and what he was able to do, win his one-on-one matchups, win some contested balls, make some plays happen. He's juiced up and ready to go. Champ Lee took a little more reserved. Brian Thomas Jr. took a little more reserved approach when it came to how he got down. We saw him catch the big play early, bang, shot down the thing, slot fade. They catch him in the right coverage. He hits it. Trevor drops a dime. BTJ seals it, finishes with 122 yards on 5 catches, made some critical catches at key moments that you love because he was able to extend drives. And, you just see the evolution of someone who's going to do great things. The passing game was on point. And when the passing is on point in Jacksonville, it means the running game is going to be on point. When I look at the running game, one, Tank Bigsby showing up and showing out. 13 carries, 101 yards, continuing to display the big play speed that, look, man, to be honest, it could be like you never would think that someone that size would have, but he has that physicality, finishes run, does a really good job of punishing people that come and tackle him. And as part of a sledgehammer offense that can morph into a sledgehammer at times, it's great to have that kind of personnel available when you got Tank Bigsby as your number 2, but playing like a number 1, but you still have Travis Etienne operating like the number 1 on the practice field. When I look at Travis Etienne, what the Jags have seemingly done is they put guys in roles. The role that I see for Tank Bigsby is he's the early down runner to grind it out, the third down receiver. Like he's kind of everything. When I look on the other side and I look at the squad, there's a little more specific in terms of like what they're doing on offense and where the ball goes. I talked about Travis and Tank Bigsby. I've talked about Christian Kirk and BTJ, but now we can talk about the complementary items that are on the menu, and that would be, you think about what Evan Ingram would be if he was available, but he's not available, so you had to go down the line and do some different stuff. And these guys were able to show up and make plays. And Burton Strange is one of those guys who we'll talk about because it is long overdue for him to be a big part of the offense. He made some things happen. Great touchdown catch down in the red zone, finished 4 for 24, but it's just the activity, finding him, making them check him, making them take him down in the open field. You just never know how those things are going to crack. But this team benefited because the team handled it. They didn't get flustered. They were able to move the ball. The quarterback was calm and cool. And even though there was a bit of a situation maybe between he and Gabe Davis, squashed it, kept playing. Nothing was effective when it came to playing style and those things. See if we can get that tidied up. But that part was really good. Finally, when we come to the offensive line played great. I mean, I don't think we can talk enough about the offensive line and what they were able to do and how they got it done. They were able to play as on a string. Doug Peterson told me, like, people give the offensive line a hard time, but it takes them 5-6 games to kind of figure out who's who and what's what, who plays where and those things. And so you may see some last minute shifts and things based off of playing style. But this is how they want to get down. High octane offense, smart people, understanding situations and circumstances, finding ways to make those plays. In the end, if they do that, everybody's going to be happy. Now, speaking of happy, I am really happy every time I'm able to go out with my melon hat on. And the reason why I'm happy, because this is my little Hydro Cool hat, because it's warm and sunny, super thick out in California. I need to make sure my head is protected. Melon does that. Durable, long lasting, stain resistant. You don't have to worry about the sweat stains coming through. It's going to look like the day you open the box when you get it. You got to check it out, man. It's my favorite. I keep handing these out to all my buddies, all my friends. I just love it so much. I'm keeping this one because of the color, but man, make sure you kind of drop us down. Check out Melin, MELIN.com. You can see all the great products that we have there. Check it out, melon.com. The hat is exactly what you need. So now that we have the hat on and we're regularly, I think it's appropriate that we're transitioning to defense when I talk about the hat. Back in the day when I was playing, we had a thing in Kansas City where we said the guys who need to stand up in these moments, they got to wear the big sombrero. So every day they would show up to the meeting, they would have the big sombrero on, sitting in the front of the meeting room. So everyone knew our success was dependent upon these people dominating their matchup. Well, whether it was intentional or unintentional or not, like somehow Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen got the big sombrero this week. And they got the big sombrero this week because Doug Peterson and the coaching staff decided to tweak their approach against the Colts. And rather than coming after them, bringing a bunch of crazy blitzes and those things, they lined up and played coverage pretty much the entire day. Kept the ball in front, rallied and tackled, did a really good job of making the plays that were there to be made when they were there to be made. When I think about the stars of the game, it all starts up front. But let me go back. When I talked to Doug Peterson, I talked to him about his defensive approach and philosophy. We talked about it in the context of Gus Bradley. I've always contended that Doug would be a little more comfortable if it was more of a bend but don't break defense, more so than aggressive, dial it up. We're going to create turnovers and disruption and those things. He values that, but he is really risk adverse when it comes to how he plays the game. Wants to be very solid and sound in that regard. So I appreciate it. But in looking at this team and looking at the guys up front, Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, it was important for them to dominate at the point of attack. Because if you're going to play a bend but don't break style, you have to be able to win with 4 so you can drop all your maximum people in coverage. When I think about the 4-3 or nickel, whatever we're in defensively, I just know that 44 and 41 have to show up and show out in these big games for us to have any chance. Luckily, in this week 5, week 1 in your hearts because the team won. Trayvon Walker, 3 sacks, forced fumble. Josh Allen, 5 tackles, but he had a sack. not crazy or anything that is like, wow, but consistent production from a former number one overall pick is really important when he's getting into the franchise years and those things. You like him firmly entrenched as a quarterback. You like everything that he brings to the table. You love the professionalism that he displays. Well trained, well coached, all of those things. He does it. When we get past the front line, the issues that you begin to see happen kind of concern you in the defensive backfield. You got a mix of young and old players who've never been together, and just making sure that everyone is on top of the deets. Like just making sure in those moments you get great energy, effort, all of that other stuff that kind of comes along with that. From a defensive standpoint, I talked about the pass rushers, but the other guy that stands out to me is number 51, and that'd be Ventrell Miller. Ventrell Miller was a Tasmanian devil last week against the Texans, and he continues to pick up where he left off. Instincts, awareness, toughness, he checks them all, does a great job of being physical but smart in the whole. There's some knocking going around, but you just have to pick and choose. How are you going to get your well days? When are you going to get your rest days? All that other stuff. Like that's, it's tough. And it's tough because you want all of these guys to be on point. And so I talked about Ventrell, and I talked about how vocal he was at halftime, and how he kind of called guys out and said, hey, if you're big time, you got to be big time, which is true. But I just love his angle and his perspective. And he may rub some people wrong, but there's a faction of folks in the locker room that love how he's come in and been himself and done those things. And speaking about coming in and doing those things, I talked about Ventrell Miller stepping in and killing his role. But how about some of the other young guys that are stepping up and filling in and making critical plays in the secondary? So whether that's Antonio Johnson, who's been a starter, Jerry Jones, who's been able to do it. Like these guys are just really, really well prepared to come in and play at a high level. It is one of those things that when you look at it from a team building standpoint, do you have enough? Do you have enough bodies where guys can be developed, where they can, they can handle it? It's not, it's not crazy, but you just want to make sure that your back end guys can do it. So when I look at the back end, Cisco and Andre Johnson and Byron, you think about all these other players up front, Buster Brown being able to do it. You just think about how they're rotating guys in, Muma and Devin Lloyd rotating in. So there are a bunch of guys that are in the rotation that shouldn't have a tough time transitioning when it comes down to it at the end. Should be a competitive deal or whatever, because these division games are crazy. And this was a division game, and man, it was as advertised, absolutely crazy. But in thinking about the chaos, I think there was a calm and a composure amid the chaos that I respect. Team didn't panic, didn't waver, didn't waffle. When they went down, they went and attacked it the same way they've been attacking it the entire time. Love that part about it. Going to continue to rock with them and support them and kind of figure out how they get this thing going. But like other pieces are certainly there to have, like another winning season, to make a push, do some things. But we got to get this last thing tidied up before we go and talk about the defense and why the defense has to stand up. So this is a little Chibundi, a little tart cherry juice, keeps me going, keeps my body going, recovery, instincts, awareness, a little aphrodisiac. I'm ready to rock now. So I can't thank this enough, because it's my secret weapon. I don't let everybody know. I'm letting you know, not everybody, because then y'all will be messing with my stash. So until we get that worked out, you got to tell a friend to go and kind of figure it out on the website. CherryBundy.com is the website. You can go find all that cool stuff there. It's going to be right there for next. Well, if not, we're going to be here. You can come back and holler at us. Now let's talk about it, because we talked about the defense and we talked about some of the things that stood out, some of the plays. But I'm going to tell you, special teams, man, that's where this game was won. Special team, Devin Duvernay flipping the field on an unlikely punt return that was kicked so far out, keep coverage, and it create big seams and big holes for a guy like Hester. He found some crack, got to the opposing 15 before they had to shut it down. But it was really, really good management of situation and circumstance and those things. When I think about what they need to do to improve, it's pretty simple. Defensively, third down percentage, fourth down percentage, got to get better. Got to win more of those things. Don't lose those. Fourth down percentage, giving up 2 turnovers. Once again, the theme is to turn the ball over. Too many turnovers. So we got to hold the ball on a little longer. But big plays. Big plays. How are we going to handle the big plays in the future when it comes to the defense? This is a unit that struggled keeping the ball in front. And I would say it's a mix of intelligence and situational awareness on top of technique, just all over the place. Can't really get it going in pressurized situations. But when you're really good in certain areas, when you're really good on defense and special teams, you have an opportunity to complement the other unit by making a play that really sets them up. Well, when I look at the plays that set them up, obviously Josh Hines, Allen, scooping it up and almost taking it back for a touchdown in round 1 was great. You think about some of the other stuff that took place like last night, like all that stuff was great. But what I want to talk about is areas of concern when you see the coach stand in front of the press and say, hey, man, we just got to get this fixed. If we do that, we'll be great. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm now going to look at the team and say, hey, here's where I'm concerned. Here's where we need to get better. Here's some of the things we got to talk about. First thing in the area of concern, third down. 3 for 10 is not good. It's not going to cut it. Like, you got to be over 50%. You got to be able to make it. You got to be able to win some of the hard battles. And a lot of people don't endure. They don't have the ability to endure. So you got to be able to deal with some of that. If you can deal with some of that, you can get to the other side. But it's part of the process. You got to buy into the process. You buy into the process, everyone will benefit from it down the line. When I think about another area of concern, we talk about third, fourth down, offensively, red zone, too many turnovers. Defensively, big plays. I mean, we give them some shots, like late in games where situational awareness, your antenna should be up, nothing in behind you, staying with it. Didn't do it. So we got to go back to the drawing board and just kind of figure out what happened. And here's what I'll say has happened. Situational awareness was not on par, was not keen. People weren't talking about what you need to do to kind of get out of this, how you play the situation in the end, how you milk it, all the stuff has to be talked about. And if you have people on the same place, then it goes through the roof. It's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page. And the reason they need to be on the same page, because in the end, when you're playing defense with a 14-point lead, the only thing you're talking about is keep the ball in front. The fact that they could not keep the ball in front twice, huge issue. Because I don't know if everything's getting communicated to players or if the players are just, I don't know. Like they just want another time. I just don't know what is going on in the back end where we can't get these dumbfounding plays made where they're throwing flea flickers, they're throwing Hail Marys. We can't get them picked, can't get them on the ground. None of that stuff. That part to me is more annoying. Last part, when it comes to concerns, I would say the advice. The advice that I got, comes directly from Doug. He talked about teams. We got to finish. Not only have they talked about finish games, they talked about like in this order, finish plays, finish drives, finish quarters, finish halves in games. You finish in those areas, you're going to have a chance to do well. You keep the ball, you finish it, you dominate, you retain possession, you do all those things that you want to do, and you can have a lot of success. And even though the Jags aren't a ground and pound squad, they're a squad that relies on a ball control approach to put them in situations to be able to win games late in games. They can do that if everyone is executing at a high level and if the complementary football is in full effect. When they play complementary, like we saw them play on Sunday, it's going to be a hard team to knock out. They're too big, they're too athletic, they're too strong to get pushed around. And as they continue to grow, they're going to be able to handle some of the bullies in the AFC. We hope they can get back on track again and add to one win to make 1 win, 2 wins when they take on the Bears next week. So those are my thoughts. That's how I saw the game from a field level view. Trevor and all the homies making it happen. Look, leave your comments, drop a note on the YouTube stream. Let me know how you feel about the Jags and what they're doing and how it's going and all of that other stuff. Like that should be what we talk about here in our community. Make sure you check out all the cool stuff that we're doing at Bleav Network. Rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you tell a friend to check out what we're doing on Fubo, what we're doing on YouTube, all of the cool stuff that we got popping. And finally, let's make sure you come back on Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to turn the page. We'll start talking about the Chicago Bears and how the Jags can go on the road. Well, not on the road, but go overseas and get win number 2. Until next time, I'll talk to you on Bucky Brooks.